Hiber-Nation 32. Grizzly's Growls presents Stories from the Hiber-Nation. Monarch, the Big Bear of Tallac, by Ernest Thompson Seton, as read by David Grizzly Smith. Part 4. The Stream That Sank in the Sand. Jack was funny. Jill was sulky. Jack was petted and given freedom, so grew funnier. Jill was beaten and chained, and so grew sulkier. She had a bad name and was often punished for it. It is usually so. Well, one day, while Lan was away, Jill got free and joined her brother. They broke into the little storehouse and rioted among the provisions. They gorged themselves with the choicest sorts, and the common stuffs like flour and butter and baking powder, brought 50 miles on horseback, were good enough only to be thrown about the ground or rolled in. Jack had just torn open the last bag of flour, and Jill was puzzling over a box of miner's dynamite, when the doorway darkened, and there stood Kellyan, a picture of amazement and wrath. Well, little bears do not know anything about pictures, but they have some acquaintance with wrath. They seemed to know that they were sinning, or at least in danger, and Jill sneaked, sulky and snuffly, into a dark corner where she glared defiantly at the hunter. Jack put his head on one side, and then, quite forgetful of all his misbehavior, he gave a delighted grunt, and scuttling toward the man, he whined, jerked his nose, and held up his sticky, greasy arms to be lifted and petted as though he were the best little bear in the world. Alas, how likely we are to be taken at our own estimate. The scowl faded from the hunter's brow as the cheeky and deplorable little bear began to climb his leg. "You little devil," he growled, "I'll break your cussed neck." But he did not. He lifted the nasty, sticky little beast and fondled him as usual, while Jill, no worse, even more excusable because less trained, suffered all the terrors of his wrath and was double chained to the post so as to have no further chance of such ill-doing. This was a day of bad luck for Kellyan. That morning he had fallen and broken his rifle, and now, on his return home, he found his provisions spoiled, and a new trial was before him. A stranger with a small pack train called at his place that evening and passed the night with him. Jack was in his most frolicsome mood and amused them both with tricks half puppy and half monkey-like. And in the morning, when the stranger was leaving, he said, "Say, pard, I'll give you $25 for the pair." Lan hesitated and thought of the wasted provisions and his empty purse and his broken rifle, and answered, "Well, make it 50, and it's a go. Shake on it." So the bargain was made, and the money paid, and in 15 minutes the stranger was gone, with a little bear in each pannier of his horse. Jill was surly and silent. Jack kept up a whining that smote on Lan's heart with a reproachful sound, but he braced himself with, "Well, I guess they're better out of the way. Couldn't afford another storeroom racket." And soon the pine forest had swallowed up the stranger, his 3 led horses, and the 2 little bears. "Well, I'm glad he's gone," said Lan savagely, though he knew quite well that he was already scourged with repentance. He began to set his shanty in order. He went to the storehouse and gathered the remnants of the provisions. After all, there was a good deal left. He walked past the box where Jack used to sleep. How silent it was. He noted the place where Jack used to scratch the door to get into the cabin, and started at the thought he should hear it no more, and told himself with many cuss words he was mighty glad of it. He pottered about, doing anything for an hour or more, and then suddenly He leaped on his pony and raced madly down the trail on the track of the stranger. He put his pony hard to it, and in 2 hours he overtook the train at the crossing of the river. "Say, pard, I done wrong. I didn't sell them little bears, leastwise not Jackie. Well, now I want to call it off, but here's your yellow." "Well, I'm satisfied with my end of it," said the stranger coldly. "Well, I ain't, and I want off," said Lan. "You're wasting time if that's what you come for," was the reply. "We'll see about that," and Lan threw the gold pieces at the rider and walked over toward the pannier, where Jack was whining joyfully at the sound of the familiar voice. "Hands up," said the stranger, with the short, sharp tone of one who'd said it before, and Lan turned to find himself covered with a .45 Navy Colt. "Well, you got the drop on me," he said. "I ain't got no gun. But look here, stranger, that there little bar's the only part I got. He's my steady company, and we're mighty fond of each other. I don't know how much I was going to miss him. Now, looky here. You take back your 50, you give me Jack, and keep Jill. If you got 500 cold plunks in yellow, you can get 'em. If not, you walk straight to that tree there and don't drop your hands or turn, or I'll fire. Now start." Well, mountain etiquette is very strict, and Lan, being without weapons, must needs obey the rules. He marched to the distant tree under cover of the revolver. The wail of little Jack smote painfully on his ear, but he knew the ways of mountaineers too well to turn or make another offer, and the stranger went on. Well, many a man has spent $1,000 in efforts to capture some wild thing and felt it worth the cost, for a time, and then he is willing to sell it for half cost, and then a quarter, and at length he ends by giving it away. The stranger was vastly pleased with his comical bear cubs at first, and valued them proportionately. But each day they seemed more troublesome and less amusing, so that when a week later at the Bell Cross Ranch he was offered a horse for the pair, he readily closed, and their days of hamper travel were over. The owner of the ranch was neither mild, refined, nor patient. Jack, good-natured as he was, partly grasped these facts as he found himself taken from the pannier. But when it came to getting cranky little Jill out of the basket and into a collar, there ensued a scene so unpleasant that no collar was needed. The ranchman wore his hand in a sling for 2 weeks, and Jackie, at his chain's end, paced the ranch yard alone. Thank you for listening to Stories from the Hiber-Nation. Comment on the website at grizzliesgrowls.com. This program is offered under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.